Hi, everybody. Welcome to my show. My name is Donna Gorton, and you are now watching Willows Bend. And before we jump into it, but tonight's topic is the Aniwatok Dome. Ground rules, let's play nice, no negativity, no stupid interruptions or foolishness, etc. And otherwise, let's just learn, grow, and be happy together. How's that? So I'm going to say a quick hi in my chat in my Facebook group, The Willows Bend, and let them know I am on chat now. And for anyone who's listening out there, I monitor the chat in my Facebook group because whether I do it in YouTube or Facebook, it really seems like that's mainly the crowd that is in chat is my Facebook group. So I might as well just be in the group. It's easier for everybody. Hi, Sandy and Kim. So anyway, we'll wait for everybody to get in. In the meantime, I will do the usual circle of protection for everyone, as usual. Surprised more people aren't coming in yet. Of course, we are probably a couple minutes earlier than what we normally get going, but that's okay. On time is good. Hey, Renee. So hopefully everyone's doing well out there and springtime is staying wherever you are. It's kind of temporarily taking a step back here in upstate New York. It'll be back. It's just kind of stepped back into late winter time here. And I didn't post, darn it. Hang on a second. It's gotten quite nippy again, high wind advisory and all that stuff, but it'll chill back out. There we go. Hey, Chris. So anyway, at least I know it is springtime and it will be back. It's probably my favorite time of year. I like watching everything kind of be reborn and come back again after being asleep all winter long. So, and it's not too hot until summer gets here. So let's do the circle of protection for everybody. This is a general practice I do at the start of every show. For those who are listening, I do a circle of protection using sage that helps protect everybody from any negative ill will, harm, negativity, all that stuff, and so everyone stays well. Brenda, holy cow. Nice to see you again, lady. So at this stage, I cast a circle of protection around everyone in my group who's watching, and anyone who may be watching in the replay, and anyone listening out there around the world. Hopefully you will enjoy the show. So at this stage, I cast a circle of protection to prevent entry of any negativity or ill will or harm into anyone's life who may be listening or viewing now or in the replay time. And I also cleanse my stones of all energy except for their own with the hopes that they will work with mine. Sage, I cleanse the stones of all energy except for their own with the hopes they will work with mine. And I'll do my dog Jake too because, you know, he needs it. In my notebook because he's moving. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's on the move. And we'll also do a run around little girl, protect these guys, small negativity, ill will, or harm. And may this protection follow each and every one outside into their own personal lives, keeping everyone safe and well. So I will it, so mote it be. And hopefully he's not going to want to go out again because he just went out before about 7:30. So he should be good to go. And for those out of my time zone, it's 8 p.m. Eastern time here now, well, a few minutes after. But anyhow, I don't know what he's doing. You all right? You good? What you doing, son? So I have a elderly Dalmatian whose name is Jake, for those who are new to me. Sometimes he gets a little bit confused as to what exactly he's doing, but you know, he catches up eventually here. Oh, I froze my chat or what? Because it's not moving. Let's get that going again, hopefully. Okay, so no one's just no one's talking, I guess. Oh, there it goes. Got it. Hey, Karen. Okay, so tonight's topic is the Eniwatok Dome. One of my members suggested this topic a little while back, sent me a video and said, oh my gosh, can we cover this? And after viewing the video on YouTube that she sent me, I definitely think it's an important topic that attention should be brought to. It has affected a lot of people's lives as well as the environment. It takes place out in the Marshall Islands in the Pacific Ocean and concerns nuclear testing that was done back in the day there. So we're going to get into all of that here. So buckle up, and it could be a bumpy ride, but hopefully not for too long. Can you not be interrupted this show again, love, and get up and get settled, please? Come on, get up and get settled. You're not missing anything that's going on. I got a piece of sage on my bed. Come on, get settled. We're not going right back out. You just came in. That's my answer. Yeah, well, you're all right. Come on up and get settled for me. All right, so I can see Facebook comments, Tanya. I explain that as everyone's coming in, that I monitor the Facebook chat in my group, the Willows Bend, on my secondary tablet, because whether I go into YouTube or here, it's pretty much the same group of people who follow me in there anyway, so there's no sense. Yeah, I may as well be in the group because it's easier for everybody. Hey, Sandy, how are you, love? So, yes, Tanya actually McCormick is the one who had suggested the topic, I believe, a little while back. And so, yes, I do think it is one of importance. And I know I was appalled after watching the video saying, oh my gosh, that's horrible. I don't see three Sandys as of yet. Hey, Tanya, how are you, lady? So, what is the Eniwatok Dome? Now, there is a large coral atoll, is what they're called. They are kind of like sandbars, is what an atoll is. And they're sort of like a mini island, but not quite, because it doesn't tend to have as much vegetation on it as a traditional island might have. And it's bigger than what you would think of as a sandbar, so they're called atolls. So it's on one of these atolls that the Eniwatok Dome is on. So the atoll is a ring-shaped reef, is island or chain of islands formed of coral, and it's kind of a sandbar, but underneath it is its framework underneath the ocean is usually a bed of coral that it sits on. Yep, she got the heart thing. Actually, she had the link, so I'd have to dig for it, Renee, as far as the link on Netflix, but not Netflix, on YouTube, I'm sorry. So, yeah, Tanya should have that, I would think, hopefully. Can you share that, Tanya, into the group for me, please? I would appreciate it. I can't do it while I'm on air because I didn't write it down, actually. I watched it after you sent it to me, and then, yeah, so... all right, so it's in the Pacific Ocean with 664 as of 2011. There were 664 people that originally lived on the island, and it's part of a string of islands, basically. But again, it is like a chain of islands that formed from the coral, but they're not full-on islands. Sandy, she's asking what video am I talking about. So Tanya McCormick had originally suggested the topic to me, and it was a video she sent me on YouTube about the Eniwatok Dome and its history, that she wanted me to watch it and see could it be a topic we voted on for the show. So I did, and I said, well, wow, yeah, let's get it on the list. So it finally got voted for. So and for anyone listening to me out there who's maybe new to me, whatever, my people in my chat, they're the ones who decide what topic we're going to do the following week. So we have a running list of topics to choose from. Majority rules Rose gets the topic chosen for the following week. I go research it, and then I present it the next week coming up. So that's how we work things. So it was under Japanese control from 1914 till the U.S. captured control during World War II in 1944. Hey, Mr. Aaron, how are you, babe? So the U.S. took over the control during World War II in 1944 from the Japanese, and the U.S. proceeded to conduct nuclear testing there after relocating all of the indigenous people off and dispersing them to nearby islands. They basically kind of said, "Oh, you're doing a good deed for the United States by doing this," and so they proceeded to do testing on this island and on another island nearby, or an atoll that was nearby. But again, there were indigenous people living there and had lived there for generations, living off of the ocean to help support themselves and so forth. And I mean, it was a small population of people, but still native to that atoll. So they got relocated from their homes, kind of a forced removal. They weren't really given a choice because, wow, my chat just kicked me out of my group. Okay, let me get back in there, guys. Chick, will you please get up and get settled, honey? I'm doing a show, so I can't, like, hang out with you or whatever. I apologize, but yeah, come on up, baby. You just went out, so you shouldn't need to go back out again. There. Okay. So for those in my group, I just approved Tanya's post for the link to the YouTube show that she sent me on the Iwatak Dome, the YouTube video. So, all right, back in chat again. Yeah, he's bored. I think he's up wandering around, Aaron. Which, of course, is distracting. I'll get out trying to wonder what he's up to. But, all right. So the amount of nuclear testing that they did there equaled more than 30 megatons of TNT. They basically wanted to see the effects of what would happen if they were to drop a nuclear bomb into the ocean on a ship of an enemy passing by or whatever, who might be attacking, which, hi, Angelica, haven't seen you in forever. And Miss Marianne, please come up, Jake. Come on, uppy puppy. So they, I mean, I can't even imagine the effects on the ocean life by dropping a nuclear bomb in the ocean and how many that would kill, in addition to dropping all that nuclear radioactive material into the water and how far the currents would carry it, etc. I cringe at that. I truly do, and that hurts my heart to think of all those animals that would be harmed in that. So 43 tests were conducted, i.e. 43 nuclear bombs were set off on Eniwetok Atoll from 1948 until 1958. So over a 10-year period, they dropped 43 nuclear bombs for testing. Hey, Stacy. So this testing happened during what was the Cold War. And then from 1977 through 1980, there was a concrete dome that was built on Runit Island to put over top of one of the blast sites that happened or was left behind from one of the nuclear bombs being set off. You know, it left a huge crater, of course, where it had gone off. So they basically sent the Army and the military personnel out there, stationed them there to build this cover, this concrete dome over top of it in order to try to contain, like they basically cleaned it all up and picked up any pieces from the bombs going off from the bomb blast. Jake, can you please get out of the spot you're in because you're going to trip? Thank you. And they just kind of threw it in and built this concrete dome over top. So we're going to get into like what went into that, which is kind of frightening once I heard the details of that. So let's see. So without a coating, the hole from the blast site with anything other than like cheapo concrete, there's a type of concrete that's made called Portland concrete, which is kind of the cheapest form of concrete one can make. And it's consists of like sand and gravel and things like that, but you can't get any more basic and cheaper than that. I'm so sorry you had a relapse, but I'm glad that you're back. And congratulations on your move to Arizona, Angel. And I'm glad that you're doing well, and we're happy to have you here tonight. I noticed you kind of had an absence, but people do that, so wasn't sure what was going on. But welcome back. Lots of love to you, and congratulations, and keep up the good hard work. So that said, so let's get into some of the history here. So humans have occupied and inhabited the atoll since approximately 1000 BCE, which is for those who don't know what that is, BCE is a new archaeological way of measuring dating time. So it used to be this BC, where now it's BCE, but they changed it to kind of get rid of the religious connotation from it. So instead of like it standing for before Christ's time, it's now before current era. So it was 1000 years before our year zero of counting zero. So they've been there for 2000 years occupying this atoll. Oftentimes, under forced relocation, the United States removed the atoll's native inhabitants out to surrounding areas and other islands and atolls. Some of them actually ended up in, I want to say, Washington State, because it is on the off the Pacific coast that all these islands exist. And if you excuse me, I'm going to take a couple more Sudafed, because apparently what I took earlier was not enough for my allergies. I just have been packed all day, and my face is all poochy from it. Come on up, baby boy. Come on, Jake, uppy puppy. Come on, sweets, get up here and get settled for mommy so I can do my show. Oh my gosh, this tablet just keeps kicking me out. Holy cow, and this time it went right back to my desktop. I think that the Wi-Fi signal may sometimes get interrupted when it's there versus standing up, but it's the only place to put it and still see chat while I'm doing the show. So give me a second, guys, to get logged back in. It's an older tablet, and yeah, so, I mean, I can't, it is what it is, right? There you are, Facebook. Come on, Jake. While we're doing this and waiting for Facebook to catch up, come on, Jake. Uppy puppy. Come on, stop pushing it to stand up. There's nothing that you're doing besides standing, so come on up. Come on up, babies. It's okay. So bear with me, to anyone out there who's watching on YouTube or listening, or perhaps on the website, where I monitored the chat on my older tablet. Sometimes it gets dumb and it kicks me off of Facebook and out of my group, so I got to get back in, which is what it did. So I am reloading Facebook now to hopefully not have any further issues. It's one of those things, apparently. Okay. There you go. Good boy. Good boy. Yes, thank you, honey. I know. You may be hurting from the weather a bit, too. Oh, I'm trying to keep the room warmed up with my furnace stopped working. My landlord thinks it's some connection with the thermostat or something. He wanted me to fix it, and I'm like, I don't know anything about, I don't do electrical things. I can fix a whole lot of stuff, but that is not one I tend to mess with, just simply because, you know, I don't want to die. I want to be electrocuted. Not my favorite idea. So, yeah, I don't do electrical work. And he's like, oh, just look for this wire and hook this one up. And then you got to get a piece of metal to act as like a conduit between them. I'm like, so I'm going to hold it to try to what? Shock it. He's like, well, you're jump starting it. Uh-huh. While I'm holding the wires. Great idea. Oh no, it's only like a 12-volt shock. Yeah, well, my luck, I would get more than that, first of all, or I would break it. Something would happen. There we go. Chat's back up. So needless to say, I called him back. So I'm only seeing one wire. Well, there's two. Well, you know what? I'm only seeing one. I'm not comfortable messing with this. So can you please get somebody in here? So yeah, exactly, Sandy. Nope. So like I said, I can fix a lot of things, but yes, my landlord is an idiot, Chris, and I know he's not going to watch this, so I can say that on air. It's just, yeah, if he can get out of doing something, he will. And, I get it. He doesn't want to have to mess with bringing someone out here, but I did look at it, and I did only see one wire, and I'm not going to tear the whole thing apart because then he would accuse me of breaking it or something. So he can get his handy man in here. I said, dude, please follow up on this because it is quite chilly in here. I know that like today, the wind chills are going to be 25 degrees up here in New York. So obviously it's going to cool the apartment down. So I've been trying to use my little space heater to keep my room at least warm. And of course the animals will hang out where I do, so they're fine. But the rest of the place is chilly. So back to the Eniwetok Dome. All right, so the native inhabitants of Eniwetok Atoll got relocated to surrounding areas, surrounding islands. Many were able to they were close enough to still able to watch as the bombs got detonated. They were that close. Oh, I don't think he's cleaned the furnace, and I don't know how long, Brenda, which is why my allergies are so bad. This apartment is very dusty, and I'm highly allergic to dust. So just even being in here makes me reactive. Still 81 there. Holy cow, Sandy. He should be insured his baby to fix. Oh, it absolutely is his to deal with, not mine. Cleanse my energy and get ready to take my kids to the swimming pool. Okay, Angel, well, I appreciate you popping in. And enjoy swimming. I can't imagine doing that yet here, but we're not there yet in here. We don't get up to like 81 where Sandy's at that won't happen until probably late May, early June. I just got off last month getting in my landlord's asked to buy a new furnace. The AC on all day. Geez, yeah, no, it's been cool, and the hella draft coming into the window, and yeah, it's a fire hazard. Oh, it is, absolutely, Brenda. It is a fire hazard, correct. And not to mention what it does to my allergies. And so, yeah, I don't think I know I've been here for, it'll be 2 years in May, and it's not been done yet. So, not his concern. Okay, so the native inhabitants to Eniwetok Atoll got moved to surrounding areas, but they were still so close they could watch the bombs going off and testing. I saw videos that were filming from standing right behind the people as they were watching. So as you can imagine, they got all the fallout hitting them from these bombs. And again, 43 nuclear bombs going off that were tested in 10 years time on this little atoll. To me, I'm gobsmacked that there even was an atoll left to test on after that many. My mother-in-law took the thermostat off the wall knowing we have 9 months of hot seasons to be being subtropic climate. Yeah, we have 9 months of cold weather here. Wow. I can't imagine not having any AC in that, but I don't do well on temperature extremes. So too cool or too hot makes me in more pain and uncomfortable. So yeah, no thanks. So the U.S. government assured the people, and it's shown on this video where they filmed them talking with a translator to the people, telling them basically, like, you have nothing to worry about. They assured them they would be a safe distance away from the bomb sites, and that they were being relocated to. And what a gift they were doing for the United States and doing their patriotic duty, and really pushed that big time. And oh yeah, it's very hot and humid on Chesapeake, absolutely. Exactly, Sandy. And when you have breathing issues too, yeah, humidity is no good for that. So in the aftermath of all this nuclear testing of nuclear bombs, beginning in 1977, the U.S. military began decontaminating Eniwetok and other islands, costing about $100 million that they poured into this cleanup. So what the cleanup consisted of? So the U.S. government sent military in with essentially no protective gear, no hazmat suits, no oxygen tanks. It was promoted like they'd be having almost a relaxed assignment to be working there on a tropical island getaway. And this is, based on what the surviving soldiers have talked about, in remembering, why when in taking the assignment to go there, like, hey, easy peasy job, and you're gonna have, tropical island, and who wouldn't want to do that? So, hey, Mary, welcome home, both to your home and to this home. So the benefit of anything to help protect the soldiers from the radioactive fallout, the debris from the radiation from the bombs, or even being warned of the risks of assignment, it didn't happen. Like, every soldier interviewed, they all reported that the risk involved was greatly minimized, that like they had nothing to worry about, and it's really not that bad, and it's no big deal, risks are minimal, so hey, go enjoy your little mini vacation on this tropical island. Now, like, they were given protective equipment to wear. However, being close to the equator, the daytime temperatures averaged 132 degrees during the day. I mean, excuse me, I can't wrap my head around even living in that kind of heat. But, so to be put into one of these suits and stuff, and have to get by with oxygen in one of these suits, if the ambient air temperature outside is 132 degrees, they'd be dropping like flies, and hence not getting any work done. So it wasn't like pushed for them to wear them, because again, the seriousness of it was completely downplayed. So the mixing the contaminated soil and debris from the island with the Portland cement I mentioned, which is really the cheapest kind of cement and the main kind of cement stuff's built out of. So in no way using any specialized materials to use for the dome and building it. They just mixed the radioactive dirt and contaminated dirt with the debris, and then put it in with the cement. And that is what created the protective covering. U.S. government at work. The videos they were showing, says Tanya, had the public showing the public had them in full hazmat suits, but that wasn't the case at all. Well, yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. What one soldier reported about that. So again, they just took all the contaminated soil and the debris from the island, mixed it with this Portland cement, which is the most common kind of basic cement used, and buried it in an atomic blast crater on the northern end of Runit Island. It was placed 30 feet or 9.1 meters deep and 110 meters or 360 feet wide crater. So this is the crater left by the atomic bombs being going off in this one spot. So they piled all the debris from the bombs, any parts of the bomb that flew off into the surrounding area, and the contaminated soil, mixed it with this cement, and put it into this crater. Now, the dome was made up of 358 concrete panels, each 46 centimeters or 18 inches thick, which is, about a foot and a half thick. And was built of the same concrete to place over top of the hole. So in 1980, the U.S. government declared to the southern and western sides that the atoll as being, quote, safe. Like, oh, well, we've done our job and it's now safe and protected. No, we're going to cover that in a second, Renee, of what that was in the photos. So the Inuitok's original residents did return later that year to parts of it, but they had to avoid the side of the atoll that had this dome put on it. So they were living right there where all these 43 nuclear bombs had been set off on contaminated soil from the fallout. Because if you've ever seen, anybody has ever seen those old videos showing the atomic bomb testings. So the nuclear bombs, they go straight up, they create a mushroom cloud above them, but then they kind of come back down and disperse outward in a big wide ring of like this massive wave of air that like destroys everything in its path, basically. And all of that went out over the entire, covering the entire atoll, in addition to the ocean, in addition to surrounding islands around this atoll. But again, they told them that they were going to be safe where they relocated them to. So moving forward to 1983, in the Compact of Free Association between the United States government and the Marshall Island governments, they established a process for the Marshallese, which is what they call themselves, those that lived on the Marshall Islands, which is where these testing things had happened. The Marshallese government people, to make a claim against the United States government as a result of injury or damage from the nuclear testing. Now, they freed up all this money that they kind of set aside to say, okay, so we will put aside 100 million or 100, whatever it was, so many dollars set aside to handle settlement claims from people who claim injury from the fallout and the radiation poisoning and so forth. I've shared a video with the group on this topic. Yes, I did approve that, Tanya, when I got kicked out of the group. I went back in and I approved the video. So the link to the YouTube video is in the Willows Bend group, posted for whoever wants to see it after the show. Radiation refugees is what our government calls them. Yep. So they set aside this money to allow for compensation, to provide medical care, etc., for anyone impacted from the radiation and the radioactive fallout from all these nuclear bombs. Again, there were 43 nuclear bombs set off just in the Inuitok atoll in a 10-year span of time. So only a portion of the claims had been paid, however, as the original fund had been nearly exhausted just from those who had laid claim up to that point. So basically, what the money they originally set aside for the claims is already gone. And in the video, it shows how they had an office on the island that were just full, filing cabinets full of claims that had been not addressed yet or paid yet. And were just sitting there because they didn't have anybody to handle them and there was no money available to pay it. So like all these people are still left without receiving any compensation or care and so forth. So we're gonna, hey Faith, and then that, exactly, Sandy, some didn't, and that's part of the problem. So the Marshallese people government filed suit arguing that the changed circumstances made nuclear claims tribunal unable to make just compensation, but it got dismissed by the U.S. Supreme Court of the United States in April of 2010. I can't fathom that, but now, as in true U.S. government way of handling things, they did make a committee to look into the validity of the claims. Were people genuinely impacted, or was, people just trying to get a cut of the pie, so to speak? Hey, Annette and Faith, welcome to the show. Sorry, sinus-y, I'm just packed. So there are estimates that the atoll might be fit for human habitation by the year 2026 or 27. After nuclear decay, decontamination, and environmental remediation, they call it, which is removal of the pollution, contaminations, etc., effectively lowering the risk. So it's just a maybe that it might be inhabitable by the year 2026. However, as we are aware, we're still 5 to 6 years away from that time span. Herein lies the problem. So again, you have this in the hole, the crater that the nuclear bomb left. They threw in all the debris that was left laying around the island from the pieces of the bomb, etc., contaminated soil. They took the contaminated soil to create this dome, which is ridiculous to me, because then if it's on the surface, it's still going to be emitting all the radiation into the air. But what happens if some breaks open before then with rising sea levels? We're going to get to that, sweetheart. So they just mixed it all together, made this cap basically over top of the hole. They didn't line the hole with anything, which would have been, I think, a smart choice to have done. And whatever material they chose to line it with for lead safety, for, to help keep and contain that from leaking down into the ocean from the bottom of the hole. No, they didn't line it. They simply created a concrete cap on top, in part made from the contaminated soil and radioactive material. Yeah, there's high intelligence there. So now the big concern is, again, we're 5 to 6 years away from the possible time frame when it might be ready for habitation again. Again, it's a if. It's not a when that by then it's going to be ready. It's that it could be by then. However, rising sea levels caused by climate change are seeping inside the dome, causing the radioactive material to leak out. Also, is leaking out the bottom into the ocean water. Is my video frozen in the group, guys? Because on my end it is, and I have a really dumb look on my face where it's frozen on. Let me know in chat if it is, by the way, or it could just be on my end and be playing just fine for you guys. No, not frozen. Good. Okay, so it's just not my end. Then I'm probably better that look on my face in. I'll just show it because I'm that way, and I made fun of myself. Sort of like the look on my face of half mid-sentence there is where I'm frozen in chat. So, okay, good. Well, we're good. So the concern is that through the rising sea levels washing over the concrete dome, in addition to the, they're also concerned, what happens if they get a typhoon that comes in and the cap is already starting to get crumbly in places, and it's starting to kind of chip off from the rising sea levels and the high tides washing over it, and in and out, that puts wear and tear on it. So it's starting to break down as the end result. So what they are really concerned with is that if the typhoon should hit, which is not that uncommon in the Pacific Ocean, it could demolish what's left of this dome, and then it would be a free-for-all, not only having all that material seep out into the air full on, but also into the ocean water. Now, granted, because they didn't line the whole of this thing with anything before putting the cap on, it has been steadily releasing radioactive material into the ocean. But it would be worse if the cap wasn't on there to help contain it somewhat, because if the cap is off, then the top ocean water coming in is going to wash into the hole and wash back out, carrying with it the debris. So who knows already what impact this has had on the marine life surrounding with the coral underneath, because again, the atoll is made up of a bed of coral, which coral is a living organism. Yes, it can die off, but it's still going to be a existing structure. I don't know yet if I've not read anything that said whether that bed of coral is still living or not. However, I know it did impact the levels of the marine life that people were catching in the aftermath of this, in addition to possible birth defects and or radiation damage that is done to the cellular structure of these marine life that they are existing off of between fishing and their seafood diets and stuff is going to be contaminated. So they're getting it twofold, not only from the environment, but also ingesting it through what they live off of. So can you imagine, just for a second, the indigenous people who lived in the Marshall Islands and were forcibly removed before the testing? The elders who are still alive now won't be able to return back home to their ancestral home before they die at the end of their life. To me, that is incredibly sad. That they had an interview in the video of one elder being interviewed for it, and she was talking about that generations of her people had lived on these Marshall Islands. Again, human habitation on these islands date back to 1000 BCE, before current era. So 3,000 years these islands had been occupied up until the last 75 years from this testing stuff. And so they're not going to be able to return home before they die, and because they had to be removed when they were young, and in the form of children, etc. Because this took place back in between 1948 and 1958. So those who are elders now were young people back then when they had to be removed, and they're not going to ever be able to go back home again. To me, that is, again, just really, really sad. So the U.S. government, in addressing the people there on both, there's an island called Bikini Island and the Inuwatak atolls, claimed, quote, "We are doing this for the good of mankind and to end all wars." The nuclear testing, in referencing the nuclear testing to convince them that it was a good idea that they be removed from their homelands for their safety's sake, to be relocated, that they were doing it for the good of mankind and to end all wars. That was the United States' justification in doing it. And it's incredibly sad, Sandy. I mean, it's no different than all the forced locations our government has done to people throughout history, between the indigenous people of America, the Americas, to Chinese people who were coming over from China originally in the concentration camps we had in the United States at the time to detain them. We had all that stuff. This just kind of falls in that line with that still. And again, this just happened back between 1948 to 1958. So they were also promised that they could return home, quote, one day. And that was all they had to go on to hold them, that one day they would be allowed to go back to their ancestral home, but no end dates put on it. So it was that, hey, you're doing your patriotic duty to leave this place for your own safety so we can do what we want and you won't be harmed. But they weren't relocated far enough away to not still be impacted from the radiation and the fallout from these bombs. They just stopped nuclear testing in Nevada in 1992. I read that somewhere, Tanya, and that just is mind-blowing to me. That I know that President Clinton and Obama were very firm and hardworking towards trying to basically put a cease on all nuclear testing, not only here in the United States, but globally, of course. But it still's obviously going on. People just don't learn. So on Inuwatak, 43 out of the 67 total nuclear tests were conducted there. So Bikini Atoll was deemed too radioactive to even bother cleaning up or to rehabilitate by 1962. So again, these tests ended in 1958, and a few years later, it was still deemed like, don't even bother with Bikini Island because it's so damaged and radioactive that it's too dangerous to even go in and do cleanup. So facts according to United States government versus the truth according to the U.S. veterans. So here's what the government says about all this. So according to reports by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, servicemen receive proper briefings on the potential risks associated with working on a Niwatoq to prepare them, including the dangers of radiation, about sunburns, about swimming, fishing, and also advised to stay upwind to minimize the risk of inhaling the plutonium that comes off these bombs. Now, in the briefing, that means an information session was given warning them of all these risks. The government claims that they did. Also, that the servicemen were equipped with personal protective equipment, including full face mask respirators, and procedures were deemed, quote, necessarily conservative in order to, and what they presented them with the material, and that they were being conservative in, just how serious it was, perhaps, but correct. So the Atomic Vets Truth, they call themselves the Atomic Vets because they are a result of this. How long since it's been tested again? So the testing on these islands or atolls, and that took place between 1948 and 1958, and 43 bombs were set off on Niwatoq Atoll, and the rest were split up between the surrounding islands like Bikini Island. But there were 67 of them that were in total that were set off. So 43 out of the 67 were conducted on Niwatoq. So again, it's an atoll is like a small island or sandbar that survives on top of a coral bed. What are you getting up and down for, honey? You shouldn't have to go out again so soon. I'm sorry if you're bored. So the Atomic Vets Truth on this stuff. So a John Bainan, who was an Army vet, he barely recalls the safety briefing he got when first arriving. The only thing he remembered was being told was to watch out for the sharks in swimming. Army vet Robert Celestial remembers catching and eating local fish, lobster, etc. And only months after arriving was he and the other servicemen warned that the seafood could be contaminated. So they weren't told ahead of time, like, hey, don't eat the local fish because it could be contaminated from the testing until after the fact. Or obviously they wouldn't have created a diet out of it. To them, again, it was kind of promoted like, hey, have an easy assignment duty. Yeah, you're going to be working, but like, hey, you're going to be on a tropical island. How cool is that? Like it was a vacation or something, and not warned adequately about the severity of what they would be exposed to. So vets disputed the claim that they received adequate personal protective gear. There's a Paul Laird, who is another Army vet, was responsible for operating a bulldozer to move the contaminated soil. He remembers asking daily, begging his superior officer at least to have a paper mask to wear on his face. A vacation of death, exactly. So he begged his superior officer daily to at least give him a paper mask to wear as he was on operating a bulldozer, moving this contaminated soil around. His lieutenant said, according to him, quote, the masks were on the back order, so use a t-shirt. Yep, a t-shirt's going to help protect you from radioactive exposure. Many reported that there was protective suits for them to wear, but it was more for the media. So Tim Snyder recalls during an interview with the New York Times that he was ordered to put on a respirator and a protective suit by Army officials. After a few photos, he was then ordered to take off the protective gear. So they put him on simply for a photo shoot, and then they were ordered to take him off again. Because again, due to the outside temperature and how hot it was, being down by the equator, you know, they would have been dropping like flies from heat exhaustion and heat stroke being in these suits to work. You know, the suits weren't equipped to handle working in that kind of heat. So in order to maximize the manpower, don't wear them, and then, you know, you can get more work done, basically. So after his first day on Eniwetok Atoll, he, quote, never saw one of those suits again. They would always just wear shorts and a hat, he said. John Bainan recalled they were supposed to wear the suits out, but they had 132 degree Fahrenheit daytime temperatures, and people just dropped in them due to the heat and weren't getting any work done. So they wore jungle fatigues that had been cut off to make shorts out of them. So shorts, sunglasses, combat boots, and boonie hats, whatever a boonie hat is, was basically our safety equipment, he said. Outside of their jobs as cleaning up the atoll of radioactive material, they also lived on the island as well. They pitched their tents on the contaminated ground, washed their clothes in local water, which was increased the likelihood of inhaling or ingesting the byproducts of the nuclear explosions, like plutonium-239. Jim Androl summarized his experiences saying, you breathe contaminated dust, in parentheses, you drink it, you eat it, you swim in it every day for 6 months, 24/7, end quote. So obviously, who would be quick to sign up for that if they had all of the information given to them before doing it? Like, you couldn't pay someone enough to do it. There's Lori. Hey, lady, how are ya? Every Monday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, we're in here, sweets. Just FYI. Jake or honey, stop wandering so aimlessly around. I'm sorry if you're bored, but I will let you out after the show's done. You can wait. You just went out. Okay, so if plutonium is inhaled or ingested, it can lead to complications like cancer, tumors, and infertility. They did wear radiation badges. However, from the continued heat and the humidity, it caused those badges to fail, so they weren't working. You know, they served no purpose to wear them. Yes, this was our own government, but really is it a big surprise considering the history of what the government has done to the American people? I mean, if you think about it, of all the examples of things they've done in putting people, you know, they're disposable. So the badges that they wear that warn you of, you know, where radiation exposure and poisoning is getting so high, you need to remove yourself from the situation. They wouldn't work due to how hot it was out and the humidity and stuff that they were exposed to. They didn't do them any good, so why wear them? So in a congressional testimony in 2016, Keith Kiefer, who was a U.S. Air Force vet, testified that he never even received a film badge or a dosimeter while working on Eniwetok Atoll. The dosimeter measures the radioactivity of anything around. But really disturbing they would do this nonetheless. No, it is. All the examples of all of the things that the government has done to the population is insane. Between, you know, you want to get into all of that. Human lab rats, exactly. And No, we are just a number, Aaron, or a dollar bill. I mean, the things that the U.S. government has done to the American population is a very long list, and a lot of it without permission. So the health complications, yeah, many times. So after their 6-month tours on Eniwetok Atoll, many vets suffered from cancers and brittle bones. Some even say that their children suffered birth defects as a result of their time there. Agent Orange, yep. The what was it? The syphilis testing on the black population in there was a southern state that happened in, but yeah, they were injecting them, was giving them syphilis to see how it played out with the symptoms, but promising them medical care, telling them that they were sick from something else. There's all kinds of pesticides that have been tested by being sprayed over like San Francisco Bay Area to see how people would react to it. I mean, it's just a lot. So the servicemen even say that some of their children suffered birth defects. Thank you, Talladega in Alabama. Yes, Sandy, thank you. Some even say that their children suffered birth defects as a result of their time there, and some even found that they had multiple kinds of cancers developing. So, for example, the aforementioned men who I mentioned who were kind of testifying, to their experiences, Paul Laird, he had kidney and bladder cancer at age 52, then developed a different form of kidney cancer a few years later. We'll never know how many horrible things they've done without our knowledge putting us at risk. Absolutely not. Yeah, no. Yeah, we did a show on that, Aaron. You're right. And it made you quite angry. Justifiably so, though. So that gentleman, Jim Androl, had a 17.5-pound malignant tumor removed from his abdomen. A 17.5-pound tumor removed from his abdomen. The U.S. government doesn't recognize these servicemen who cleaned up Eniwetok as, quote, atomic veterans. Exactly, Tanya. This means by not recognizing them as atomic vets and like having been exposed to radiation poisoning from their actions, it means that they don't receive any radiation exposure compensation from the VA, which is where they get the medical treatment from. Nuclear tests in southern Utah were really bad. Yeah, I remember your temper on that one, Aaron. I mean, justifiably so. It is something to get mad at. And it's where people are finally standing up now and saying, no more. We're done. No more. So the U.S. government is even recognizing them as having health issues as a result of that. Like, hey, we adequately prepared you. We gave you adequate protective gear to wear. So you wouldn't have been impacted by the radioactivity contamination as a result because we gave you everything you needed that they couldn't use in that environment. So they don't receive any radiation exposure compensation from the VA. Many lack medical insurance that would cover the multitude of illnesses as a result of their exposure. No, that's why I agreed it is a topic, Tanya, and I thought it was an important one to bring to light. Their medical records state that they weren't exposed, so their attempts at free medical care via the VA get denied. I mean, that's to me is mind-blowing that even in their medical records, it denies that they were exposed to it. Even if they were wearing protective suits, you can't wear them 24/7 for 6 months straight. Never mind in 132-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. That's not going to work. You would probably end up sweating, dying from, heat, again, have a heat stroke and die from that. You would melt in that suit for that long. So at some point you would have to take it off and be exposed that way. Even if someone religiously wore the suits to try to work in. At the end of the day, you would still take it off, get a shower, hence being exposed to the groundwater from the place in your showering. You would also then be sleeping on the ground, exposed to it. You're not going to sleep in one of those suits with an oxygen tank. So, anyhow, Jeff Fortin, who is an Air Force vet, he remembers being told that, quote, there was minimal danger in that, quote, there was a low level, but it wouldn't be anything that would be affecting them as individuals, end quote. Yeah, they were denied getting approved, even being exposed. A gentleman by the name of Ken Kasich, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, who worked as a civilian in the Military Exchange Commission on Lojua Island. He summarizes it as, quote, our boys worked 6 month tours of duty on a dirty island, and the government says, quote, you never were there. We were never acknowledged. We don't exist. So what happened to all the displaced islanders? Yeah, that's very awful, and they don't get compensation financially or qualify for the free medical care to treat anything that came from their exposure, because they say there was no exposure. I die in Virginia heat. I can't imagine wearing suits. Exactly, Mary. Like, that's why they were told don't wear them. Like, they were told to put them on for photographs for the media and then to take it off afterward, knowing that there was no way they could work wearing them. Exactly. Well, it wasn't just blacks that were there and for this. It was whites too. But, you know, they still get denied. So by the 1960s, the islanders began developing cancers following the nuclear tests conducted on Bikini Island and Eniwetok Atoll. So even residents further away showed elevated risk for thyroid tumors and leukemia as a result of, again, the fallout. They were, in the video that Tanya shared, it shows them watching the testing happening. So they were close enough to see it take place and hence get the fallout from it. So whilst the U.S. government did award them money as compensation but the U.S. stopped paying after 2011 because Congress wouldn't provide additional funds. So again, the original fund source that was approved to compensate them ran out of money, and Congress since then, after 2011, they would not grant more money to be funneled to helping them, and as a result, or providing those original residents with medical care. Jake, honey, you're going to be bothering your leg by all this jumping up and down, son. Bikini Island is still off limits, and again, former resident islanders aren't able to return home as promised. Fish can't be eaten, food can't be farmed because of the contaminated soil or consumed, and the water would be too dangerous. One of the residents was talking about a white powder falling from the sky after, it changed, that fallout goes into the sky and sets and then comes back down. Well, it does kind of happen like that, Mary, is that all the ash that it creates from the explosion does come back down in the form, and it looks like snow, but it's ash falling from the sky, and it's a steady fall. Yeah, they were excited because they didn't know what any difference. Honey, don't be so restless tonight. What's the matter with you? All you're going to do outside is stand around, so, what's the point in that? So, again, the islanders can't return because Bikini Island is still off limits because it's too radioactive there. Population control, killing off a number of people every year. People all over Utah and Nevada have high thyroid problems no one ever heard of before 1960, including myself. Exactly, it's like a that all these issues have cropped up. And just wait till some of these stories that you hear coming up here. So just how destructive these bombs were surprised the size as they developed. So combining with shifting wind patterns sent some of the fallout even further out. The island of Rongelap and Utrecht is within 52 hours, and the 86 people who were on Rongelap have been evacuated, and the 86 on Utrecht were evacuated to other islands for medical care because of the fallout. So the U.S. government has, quote, expressed regret over the 253 Marshallese people who were exposed to high doses of radiation. Hey, Gina. So they regret their exposure. Well, I'm sure that's quite helpful to the people who live there, So there's a woman who is now living in Washington State, and she is an activist as a result of learning all this history. And a lot of those people who, are the offspring of those people who got exposed, who are now adults themselves, are going into that field of being activists regarding the topic because of, after once learning the history, they were so appalled that they couldn't just sit back and ignore it any longer. They only cleared out some of the islands. Well, that's what I said, Tanya. They relocated them to other surrounding islands. So they only cleared out the ones that the testing was being done on, not all the other surrounding ones. So a young woman named Selena Leams, earliest reminders of the history of nuclear testing. She grew up in Maduro and remembers her aunt gave birth to her two cousins, which I would assume were twins by this. Exactly, Annette. So each baby was born with one ear, and one was born with their intestines exposed, and they both only lived for a few days. A member from her mother's side of the family was from Utrecht, which is one of the islands that had the high fallout that was nearby the islands that they tested on. Stories of babies born with abnormal features or other deformities aren't uncommon in her Marshallese community. Aaron Gittium, who was a Marshallese elder, lived in the Inuiatak Atoll originally, describes each of her three children being born with physical or mental health issues that she blames on the atomic testing. She says one had a huge head, which I'm guessing would be like encephalitis, and the other had his umbilical cord sticking outside of his body. So rather than being connected through your belly button, it was somewhere else connected to his body on the outside, I guess. She goes on to describe other women having babies with their intestines or brains visible or outside of their bodies at birth. The more powerful nuclear testing was nicknamed, quote, Bravo, and went off on Bikini Atoll on March 1954 and was 1,000 times more powerful than the device that the U.S. dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. Let's think about that for a second. Many of us have seen images of Hiroshima, Japan, in the aftermath after the United States dropped bombs there on them. And it was just utter destruction and demolition. I mean, there was no buildings left standing. Everything in its path was just gone. And people were dead in the streets from it, if they even survived, the bomb exploding. So what they tested on Bikini Atoll was 1,000 times more powerful than what they dropped on Hiroshima. It didn't specify it as a hydrogen bomb, Tanya, in the research. So the fallout was spreading. Holly Barker, an anthropologist and professor at the University of Washington State, says if you take the equivalent of 67 nuclear tests conducted that we know of, occurred, and stretch those out over the 12-year testing period from 1946 to 1958, it's 1.6 Hiroshima-sized bombs dropped every day for 12 years. Let's reread that. You did a report on Hiroshima in high school, so then you know, Aaron, just how bad it was. So let's reread that statement again. If you take the equivalent of 67 nuclear bomb tests, they say nuclear tests, but it's individual bombs conducted that we know of that occurred there, and stretch those out over the 12-year testing period from 1946 to 1958, it's 1.6 Hiroshima-sized bombs dropped every day for 12 years. Mind blown is right. I can't even imagine what that would be putting into the atmosphere, into the surrounding environment, into the Pacific Ocean, into the marine life of the Pacific Ocean. Like, I just can't even wrap my head around that. It is monstrous and horrible, absolutely. So Trisha Pritikin's father, her father, died of cancer. Almost done, Jake. Relax, honey. And Trisha Pritikin is an author and is also an advocate for, receiving adequate compensation for this. Yes, the stories were horrible. A lot of people contracted AIDS, HIV from those bombs. Not AIDS or HIV, it didn't come from the bombs. Cancers did, and radiation poisoning did. Radiation doesn't cause AIDS or HIV. That's a sexually transmitted disease, hun. So Trisha Pritikin said that, her father had contracted cancer, as did her mother, and she sustained thyroid issues for several years since the 1950s. Pritikin speaks of low-dose exposure via the surrounding lagoons, etc., to the islands or on the atolls. On the plus side, last year, the Marshallese people and all the islanders got access to Medicaid in the United States. So if they live in the United States at all, then they were finally able to get approved for Medicaid. However, prior to that, back in 2011, the initial funding that was set aside to compensate people, to give them medical treatment and etc., to handle the complications that came from all this, they ran out of funds, and Congress has refused to channel any more money to it since 2011. And that includes any service members, etc., who are still dealing with all of that and the problems with that. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you did, Tanya, because again, I think it should be brought to people's attention. And whilst I don't have a massive worldwide audience, I don't actually know what my numbers are, but for anybody who is listening or watching, spread the word, make people aware of this, that this has gone on. And in certain places you might be listening, they may be already dealing and aware of this. It was cancer, the book I read said HIV, AIDS, maybe the stories in the book. I don't know, because those are sexually transmitted diseases. They wonder where all these malformed animals and fish come from. Exactly, yeah. Hey, Miss Amanda, how are you, sister? So, in 2012, the Department of Energy was supposed to set up a system to monitor groundwater for radiochemical analysis on Eniwetok, and to date, that is yet to occur. They have tested the lagoon's water, which they do fish from, and, exactly, three-eyed fishies. They do fish from these lagoons, and let me see. So they've tested the lagoon water next to the dome itself, the Eniwetok Dome, and the sediments at the bottom of the lagoon. So all the dirt and stuff at the bottom of the lagoon, they've tested that. And it showed the seafloor sediments is the largest source of long-term repository for contamination. So all of that radiation and debris has landed on the seafloor. And okay, Tanya. And so again, if there is a massive typhoon that happens, or have high winds, and with the rising sea levels and the tides keep continuously washing over the atoll, then as the tide goes back out, it's going to be taking it back out with it, and all repeatedly over and over, going to be washing it more and more of it, a continued source of the radioactive material back out into the sea. So the seafloor, with my right in the surface, sorry. Here goes my drink cup. Sorry, guys. My notebook slipped out of my hand. Chain reaction. But at least I minimized the fall of that cup, which is horribly loud on the wooden floor. The stories were horrible. I couldn't even get through the book without crying every day. Eventually, I had to stop reading it because it was too much. Yeah, no, as an empath, it is. It's horrible. And what we did to people, the U.S. government did to people, is just mind-blowing. So the surface has also begun cracking on the dome, and a lot of the concern of what if a typhoon came through the area, the dome would be cracked open, and then a free-flowing, like a free-for-all leak would be occurring from onto the surface and into the ocean water, dumping tons of radioactive material into the ocean. Also, rising tides have been doing damage to the dome, and many of the displaced population's offspring now reside in Spokane, Washington area, and are activists in advocating for better protections, healthcare, and climate change policies to occur. So, I mean, that's the one positive thing that has come out of this, is that young people, they're not forgetting their heritage or their elders and what happened out there, and they're working for better change, which are very good things. And I send my applause and my heartfelt love out to those people who are working to make it better. So a budget to defend people, no weapon makers, or not the weapon makers, is a logo and often sought by the victims, still paying a price for the government's folly from back then. So, let's help the people, not the weapon makers. And, unfortunately, all these people are still dealing with issues from that. And again, these birth defects and stuff, they can still be occurring in, 3 generations down, to where, like the one woman talked about her aunt having her cousins, and her aunt was there when it was happening. And so if she did have children survive, and they went on to have kids, those genetic anomalies that came from the radioactivity exposure would be passed down to them, and then, kind of keep going. So it's not something that's going to be easily just gone away with. And all these people who were there working on the island are now coming forth with all these different kinds of cancers and tumors and thyroid issues. And there's nothing there to help them deal with the mounting medical bills that they're on their own to pay for. I mean, if they're income qualified, they could get Medicaid, but the VA Vets, Association isn't going to be in support of them medically because their records say it didn't happen. The sad thing is that the world governments aren't taking any responsibility for climate change. No, and certainly not fast enough, Lori. It is a problem, and they don't want to admit that we have impacted things. So there you have it. That is the Eniwetok Dome. For those interested, if you look in the group for the show reminder I did post a picture of that in there, what the dome looks like. So that's with the show reminder from earlier today. Can we open up a chat in group discussing the government nuclear testing? Yeah, Tanya, there's anybody can make a room within the group. And if you look in the gray buttons underneath the group's photos, that is where the button for rooms are. So you can make that and go, anybody can go in there and have a conversation about whatever and do video chat in there about whatever. That's where I do the Seth Speaks book group is in there in one of the rooms. Hey guys, sorry my Facebook app keeps kicking me off. Just want to drop by, say hi to everyone and send you all my love. And back at you, sis. And yeah, my old tablet kicks me off all the time too. Probably wouldn't hurt if I uninstalled and reinstalled Facebook on that tablet because, yeah, it doesn't like to keep up. But I miss you and I love you. So, I'm going to do my pen. There it is. So, topics to vote on for next week. You're very welcome, Tanya. So, yeah, anybody who wants to hang out together in discussion can go in and create a room. And you can choose in there whether you have it be public or private. If it's public, then it'll show up in your notifications that a room is active and people are are able to join. If it's private, then it'll be just between whoever the room's creator is can invite specific people in for a conversation about stuff. And it can be about whatever, like, as long as you're not violating Facebook's community standards, you're okay. Oh yeah, no, it's the groups that voted for it, Tanya. And yes, that's my cat, little girl, making her normal bridge stop on me. So, topics for next week, we have medieval birth control methods, Thunderbirds, tulpas, aberrant sexual behaviors, the Knights Templar, and that's it for topics for next week, unless somebody else has a suggestion that they want to add to it. And any of my listeners anywhere through the Soma Fusion Network can message me on Facebook Messenger and suggest a topic, and I will add it to the list to be voted on. So that's the best way to reach me. If anybody has any questions or needs the link to join the Facebook group, whatever, you can hit me up on either leave me a message through the Soma Fusion site or on Facebook Messenger under Donna Hawk Who Walks the Land Gorton. Little girl, can you please move? Come on, kitten. I can't do this while you're standing on me. Over there. I love you, but go on. So, let's see. Chris says tulpas. Tanya, I have a topic, but I want to discuss it with you first. That's fine, Tanya. Sandy says Knights Templar. Karen says, you might not say anything against Facebook guidelines today, but Facebook could change your guidelines and ban you for 30 days and 70 years, right? Yep, you missed it again, Aaron. Tanya says sexual behavior. Okay. Sandy says Knights Templar. Tanya says sexual behaviors. Karen says medieval birth control methods. Faith says Thunderbirds. Yep, Thunderbirds are a mythological creature there's a lot of lore surrounding them and what they've done and even taking people and stuff. So that is what Thunderbirds are. Brenda says sexual behaviors. Annette says Thunderbirds. Lori, is that your vote, or are you just asking about the Thunderbirds? So we have Thunderbirds, medieval birth control methods, tulpas, aberrant sexual behaviors, and the Knights Templar. Gina says Thunderbirds. Aaron says the Knights Templar. Gain sinuses. Is that everybody? Medieval birth control methods, Thunderbirds, tulpas, aberrant sexual behaviors, or the Knights Templar. Lori, were you voting for Thunderbirds or were you just asking me what it is? Because I explained what it is, but wasn't sure if you were voting for it. Chat's moving again. Get the glasses on. Mary says the Knights Templar. You were voting. Okay, so Thunderbirds. Thank you for clarifying. And Kitty crossed over yet again. Can I put you up here? Like, will you let me hold you for a moment so I can see what it is I'm doing? That'd be nice. Rather than stepping on. No, I explained what they are, Sandy, but I don't think it's been a separate show. Like it's been talked about in other shows, but it's not been a separate topic by itself. Renee says Thunderbirds too. Okay. Gotcha, lady. Because I did go back and check and see if it has been, and we've, like I said, it's been inside of another show, but not by itself. Okay, Mary says Thunderbirds also. So right now it looks like Thunderbirds are going to go. No, Erin, I've been on for an hour and a half. It depends on the topic. I mean, some shows, you know, some topics are bigger than others. We always start at 8 p.m. Eastern, though. So, again, it's been on for an hour and a half now. So, it depends on, to some topics go over 2 hours. It really varies on what we're talking about and what chat has in it. So it looks like Thunderbirds is the winner for next week. So next week's show is on April 5th. We're going to be going into April already. Me, I don't even know what time it starts. Well, I'm sorry. Well, you missed it. So exactly, Renee. He just keeps coming in later and later. Exactly. Busted, Aaron. Busted. All right, so April 5th will be next Monday's show. We'll be talking about Thunderbirds. The Seth Speaks book group will be this Wednesday on the 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern in the room. So you will get invited and notification for that if you want it. And so all you have to do is open up the invitation. If in Messenger it shows up, all you got to do is click join room and it should take you in there in video chat. And otherwise, if it shows up in your notifications, come into the group and click on the notification for the room starting, and it'll take you right in. So it's not hard to get into it if you're interested. Yeah, he's out in Oregon. Yeah, and we love that you can finally make it in, Sandy. Yeah, and you know, people have stuff going on, and you know, I don't worry about. I'm never mad at anybody if they can't make it or whatever. You know, people will feel like they apologize to me, like they owe it to me to be here. That's not the case at all. Like, if you're going to be here, it's because I want you to be here, not because you feel obligated to come or that you're obligated to be supportive. No, not at all. If you don't like it, the topic, or you're busy with life stuff, I get it. Life stuff happens. If it means something to you to be here, then set an alarm in your notification in your phone or device. I do 3 notifications of each show I'm doing. Each single show has 3 notifications to it. So if you read your notifications, you're bound to see one of them, or you check up on what's going on in the group. It's always posted in the group too. I'd be there if it doesn't kick me out on Wednesday. I know, you always have connection issues, Mary. Yep, Aaron's in Oregon. So Willow's been, well, for this week, I'll be on again Wednesday for the Seth Speaks book group in the Willows Bend group. So if someone from outside of Facebook is interested, we have been reading the Seth Speaks, the Eternal Validity of the Soul book in there and then discussing it. But each week, if you're coming in late to it, no worries, because I give a summary before each time we start, catching people up as to what we covered thus far, or the main ideas of things, so that it's okay if you don't have a copy of the book to follow along in, because I'm reading it out the entire time, and I stop throughout it to explain stuff or discuss it, so and to answer any questions. So if anyone is interested who's listening outside of Soma Fusion or on Facebook, you're welcome to come and join my group for these things. The book group isn't on Soma Fusion, but it is in the Willows Bend group on Facebook. Does that make sense? Only have connection issues when trying to reply to someone else. Well, that's a pain, Lori. So the Seth Speaks book group will be Wednesday, on March 31st at 8 p.m. And I do readings on my page in Facebook, Beyond the Veil, Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be April 2nd, which is this coming Friday. So that is the rest of this week's schedule, and then back in here to cover Thunderbirds on Monday, April 5th. Yeah, we get that, Mary, and many of us in here get by on Social Security disability, and I included, so I understand money's tight. The stimulus check did help, of course, but it doesn't last forever, unfortunately. Friday's your son's birthday. Well, happy early birthday to your son, Renee. So that'll be the schedule of events. And again, anybody has any topics, feel free to shoot me a message in Messenger, and we'll see about getting it added on to the roster for next week. Yeah, so that'll be Wednesday. It'll be a big 36. Wow. Here at Xfinity. Yeah, a lot of people have that as their group. I have Spectrum here, so yeah. So anyways, guys, that is going to be it for this week. I'm not sure where Miss Katie is to end things on her side of it, but hopefully she can still hear me. Okay, Tanya. So yeah, Tanya did post the link in the group that she sent me originally, that's on YouTube, about the Eniwetok Dome, if anyone's interested in watching it. And there is research online about it as well, or information about all the stuff that's gone on, the history and so forth, that I did tonight's show from. So, but I did watch the video first to get a sense of the topic, of course. So yeah, sometimes the shows run longer than others. Sometimes there's more chat activity interrupting the show to make it last longer. It varies. Or otherwise, until Katie comes back, I guess I'll still be on the air. But the show is geared for 2 hours. But again, it just doesn't always run that long. So, how do you know it was wonderful, Aaron, when you weren't here for it? I loved you. You're just having trouble getting comfortable tonight, buddy. What's the matter? You just can't get comfortable tonight, poor old boy. Your legs are bothering you probably from all that jumping up and down. That certainly didn't help anything. Busted. I give you my sass because I can, just like you can give me yours when you feel like it. So there you go. Nope, Aaron he just came in as we were voting, Gina. He missed the whole thing, but he's saying it's a wonderful show. I appreciate the praise, but yeah, it could have sucked and he wouldn't have known. Yeah, Aaron's my little brother. And if you can't sass your little brother, well, then who can you sass, you know? And considering I was the youngest in my family and I was the only girl, having someone as a younger brother is awesome to me because then I'm not the youngest anymore. None of you are allowed to give me your sass unless it's that short for sexy ass. Well, I'm betting that Isis would have a different opinion on that. I was wishing Aaron was going to be present for the topic, but yeah, you know, he used to come to every show faithfully, but that's changed over time and he's not been making it for different reasons. So, I'm sure it doesn't count. Faker Baker Go Kiss Jaker I was the youngest too. Yeah, I am the youngest of my family. I got 2 older brothers who were horrible. Not that I passed that on to Aaron because I had it terrible for my brothers, but he has things happening. I'm sure the cellulite ass is that close. So for those who are listening in or watching on YouTube or whatever, I am responding to comments in my Facebook group's chat. She rarely makes it in, Gina, because she's usually working or busy with other things. So he may not want to see the video because he doesn't do well with stuff that is darker and negative in that way. And a fat tail, no ass at all. She had to work night shift last night, so she got. I mean, I'm a night owl too, but I sleep during the day. But still have to get up and pull it together to be here for the show. She's coming up behind him. I was wondering what the coffee grounds were, if that was for the cellulite or how that would help cellulite. And, the shortness, yeah, I don't see where that would help. Although I did post an article earlier that science, I guess, is now that old wives' tale about children drinking coffee and that like it's going to stunt your growth. And that science has now proven that is not true and that it's more based on genetics and stuff. You can kind of guesstimate how tall like a child is going to be based on, there's a math formula to do with the adults' heights, the parents' heights. You add them together and then divide by 2 or something like that. And what it comes out to is about how tall your child's supposed to be in the end. I love my brother, but we are in different worlds. Too much unhappiness there. My family's too disconnected, and I don't have anything to do with them, so they're kind of non-people to me. So, you guys are my family. Right. It's more having to do with, it doesn't impact your bone structure or how tall you're going to be. Drinking coffee as a kid doesn't do it. Why are one of the subjects cellulite? And Gina, she was saying, Karen had made a comment that her ass is cellulite and shortness. So it's not one of the voting topics, silly. Cellulite is just little fat pockets. Massage the coffee on while showering, and it breaks up the fat cells, and the warm water flushes it all through the body. Okay, but how is the warm water supposed to flush it out through the body if you're not ingesting the warm water? Twins, one is 5'10", her brother is 6'2". Wow. I've not heard that before. I mean, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't have coffee grounds, but, I mean, I could see where, massaging the cellulite would break up the fat pockets, yes. I don't know where coffee would have an impact on it, but warm water heats it up while you massage it out. So how would the coffee grounds help then? Well, yeah, because when you have fraternal twins, it's two separate eggs being released that are fertilized at the same time. So they are, essentially the same as having two separate siblings, or two separate kids, but you're carrying them at the same time. So they look no more alike than two different siblings would. I mean, I don't look anything at all like my brothers. The only thing we really have in common is, like, we have the same chin shape. That's my mom's. I have more of my mom's nose than they do. They look like their father. We have different fathers, but yeah, totally don't look like them. It's rough like a loofah sponge. Okay, so basically, grinding the coffee grounds into your skin would help break up the fat pockets in order to get them released from your body. Gotcha. You could just use a loofah sponge and just use a washcloth in the shower. So, anyhow, yeah, I'm not sure still where Katie is at. I can message her to let her know we kind of are just done and hanging up now. Hanging out. Let's see. I don't know if she'll see it, but there we go. Sorry about that. My fraternal twins born last have seven twins or 7 kids. I have my dad's dimple in my chin. Yeah, I don't know who my father is, so I don't know what he looks like to know that part. But my brothers, their father is Mexican Indian and White Mountain Apache, so they have that dark coloration, dark hair. They look like they are indigenous Americans. Oh, Cat, really? Oh, thank you for puking. Yes, that's great. Thanks. 7 kids. Wow, bless your heart on that one, lady. So I'm going to walk out and take Jake out because he's been pacing and bored. I don't know if that's his problem or if he's just maybe, uncomfortable tonight, and that's what it is. But I mean, I think so, because he's not settling in anywhere for any amount of time. And you guys know he's normally mostly conked out during the show. So I'm not going to take the other tablet with me while I do this, just because it's too difficult to manage 2 tablets. So let me set you on my walker there. All right, Jake, come on, you got to go out. Let me get the light on here. Yes, I know that the clothes are icing away. But I was tired of waiting for what, usually it's really, the kitchen's the warmest room in the house. You going out or not, Jake? You gonna go out? Then come on, let's not let all the cold air in. Well, what are you doing? If you don't have to go out, we're not holding it open, letting all the cold air in. Sorry. So normally the kitchen is the warmest room in my apartment, and there's a great heating vent in here that dries the clothes pretty quickly normally, or at least overnight on my drying rack because I don't have a dryer. But without that to run, they've been taking forever to dry, just sitting on it. So earlier, both to warm up the kitchen and to dry the clothes, I put the oven on for a while and put the rack over by it in order to get them dried faster. But oh yeah, we didn't have a cord plugged in for that. So at any rate, I love you guys. Yeah, it's probably gonna stay on because I don't know where Katie is right now. She hasn't come back to check on things during the show, so she may not. Well, I'm guessing she's not aware that we're done with the material. So if you guys have to take off, that's understandable and just fine. And I will be here until she disconnects us, I guess. So I love you guys, and thank you all for coming to hang out. Just looking back in comments. We thought she was taking some time away. No, she's still running the network, Renee. She's just taking a break from the Goddesses and Devils show for now. But she's still running all of our other shows that are on her network. I don't know what my father looks like either, but I'm told I have his nose and chin, says Sandy. And that you haven't seen me since COVID. Got my dad's eyes and my mama's long legs. And my daughter has my mom's long legs. I do not. Okay, Aaron. Love you too. Talk to you later. I mean, I'm still here on air until she disconnects it from the network, but. Okay, Mary. Question, Donna. Is Jane the lady that is hypnotized to channel Seth? She's not hypnotized. She started with her husband, Robert, they started out trying it on a Ouija board, and Seth first came through there, but then she was finding that she was going into a trance in order to channel him through. So it's channeling and not being hypnotized. Her husband, Robert, takes dictation, and he would write out each session, letting it, because back then this was in the 70s that took place. So, but he would hand write out all of it. But yeah, she channels it. Well, she doesn't anymore because she's crossed over, but back then, yeah, they did like twice weekly sessions in front of small groups of people, and sometimes Seth would also help with a private case from someone who's writing in or whatever. But her husband would write it all down, everything that got said. And there are videos on YouTube about Jane. If you look up like Jane Roberts channeling Seth, you should have videos that come up of the channeling sessions to kind of see it in action. Everything about her countenance changes during that time to where she, her posture, her voice, her accent, her facial expressions, everything. But it's consistent. I mean, this went on for 6,000 typewritten pages worth of stuff that would come through in all the channeled sessions. So it went on for quite a while, but I found it more valid because that would be hard to get just right every single time if you were making it up or faking it. I had some guy the other night, I was leaving a comment in some show I was watching and had mentioned, I'm a psychic medium, and he immediately kind of jumped down my throat, calling me a scam artist and a fake and a fraud, and how I should be ashamed, and, that I am gonna, something about being Satan's minion. And I said, I'm really sorry. That must be hard going through life with such a closed mind. And he kept trying to keep it going. And I said, you're not going to manage to bait me on this into an argument with you. Like, I'm not that petty, for one. And no matter what I say, you're going to find something horrible to say back to me in response. I'm not engaging in that. And I don't have to convince you or otherwise, because no matter what I say, you're going to hang on to your foundation of beliefs. So I'm breaking off this engagement before you get the firewood out to start a fire here, meaning like, burn the witch type of thing was his attitude. So I disengaged from it. Oh, I know, right, Chris? I was like, where do you get off, dude? Like jumping, you don't even know me. Okay, I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Judgy McJudgy Pants, that I don't fit into your little standard. No, this was on a comment that was made in a video chat from a show like a Facebook show. There's a YouTube creator in there. I think her name is Loey or something. She does like a lot of she's an empath but doesn't realize it or acknowledge it. But she follows and does a lot of shows based off TikTok material that people post. And so I commented something in there about it, one of her haunting experiences she had. And I was making some comment about spirit activity or something. And you could tell he was kind of like the born again Christian type, who was just completely judging me 110%. And I said, I'm not sure where you think I'm scamming people or taking advantage of people. Like, you would be probably quite surprised by the amount of free work I do all the time for people. And I very rarely get paid for what I do. So, like, yeah. But again, I'm not going to engage in this conversation with you because it's not going to go anywhere, and it's a waste of my energy, which I value much more than I value your opinion of me. Welcome back again. So, and then based off of that, there's this woman in, I want to say Germany, who messaged me immediately saying, can you help me with the reading? And I said, yeah, I can. I said, I get it that get the impression that you're not going to be willing or be able to make a donation, which is fine. I don't turn people away for readings unless they're really obnoxious about it. So I have one scheduled with her tomorrow, I believe. Exactly, Sandy. He needs his eyes open. But, some of us will not have our awakenings and become enlightened. Some of us are not going to, rise above that and out of that small closed box. Exactly. Very argumentative and confrontational and judgy McJudgy pants. And sorry, but I am one of the most or least judgmental people. While I may have opinions about people, that's to me is different than judging them, because my opinion can be wrong and I can admit if my opinion's wrong. But, at the same time, I don't put it out there like my opinion on somebody's character is absolute truth or facts. So that's been my response all week to people who are incorrectly judging me or jumping down my throat. That must be really hard going through life with such a closed mind. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how hard that must be for you. Hey, Kim, welcome back. Or glad you're still here. So I told that to Bonnie the other night, because there was somebody else earlier in the week I had made that comment to. She's like, wow, he must have really pissed you off to make a comment like that. I said, no, not at all. It was just me being sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek back at him that, like, you're going to sit and judge me. Well, then, gee, that must be really hard to go through life with such a closed mind. And I'm sorry to hear that. Exactly, Chris. They're, what they are a reflection of the light within themselves, whether they have it or not. Gina says he's not happy with himself. Till then, may he find the light of reality one day. Yeah, I basically had said, I wish you love and light, and I'm reserving my judgment of you with my opinion of you, but, I'm not going to go there. Yeah, he's very one-sided. In my opinion, I've found that so-called Christians are the most judgmental people on earth. They very much can be in observing that their view is the only one that exists. And I get it. It's a matter of faith and how you view that faith. But when the original message of Christ was very non-judgmental. So that's where I don't understand where Christians get judgmental, because Christ was accepting of everyone. He loved even the most unlovable people by societal standards, and helping the most, diseased or people's paths who are different than his. But it wasn't so he could convert them. It was simply to love them for who they were. I had a friend like that. He said everyone ever does is there's such a fake. So I told him, I said, believe what you want. I said, until you actually experience, you'll never know for sure. It was very sorry for the Mumbo Jones jumble, but because I can't type because my wrists are both hurt. Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to impact their truth, because that's their truth and it's their journey and not mine. So I think that's the most one can do in that situation, is choose not to engage or to waste your energy on that, or let them, their opinion of you impact you. And I choose not to. So you can think of me what you want. I don't know if he even got my comment about, you know, getting the wood to start the fire to burn the witch, but, you know, that would be his choice, apparently, obviously. Honey, you need to sit down because you can hardly stand up. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna try to, I don't know where Katie has gone to, but she's not at the desk, obviously. So I'm just gonna shoot her a message quick and let her know that I am done with the show and the material, because I mean, again, it's slotted 2 hours, but it doesn't mean we're going to necessarily go for 2 hours. Come on, chat. There she is. All done. Waiting for network. What? All done. Done. There. Sorry, guys. I was just shooting her a private message to let her know we're done with the show. I can't control shutting off the feed, so I'm kind of like on here. Exactly. I know what I hear and see. You can tell me different, but I know exactly. It's a personal experience thing, and that's what the whole thing about one's awakening is, in recognizing there's more, but not everyone's ready to take the blinders off, and we can't impact that. So it's one of those things that you move on to the next who may be willing to take the blinders off, to be there to help them and guide them. But if they're not ready, they're not ready, and you can't force someone to join your reality or raise their consciousness up to a higher level if they are not there yet spiritually. It's not going to be. You know, some people are way too stuck still in their 3D reality based on what they've been taught. Okay, Sandy. And we can't impact that. So let's move on to the next person, and that's all we can do. What about Miss America? That's random, Aaron, about Miss America. Right. You know, people have closed minds. They're going to have it. And again, everybody has their awakening at different times. And there are those that choose not to have it. And that's a choice. You can't make them see with open eyes or see the more part that exists. And some of it is faith-based. You know, it's a belief in understanding that. Okay, Katie just messaged me, so she knows we're done. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out, and I wish everybody who is watching or listening love and light, and I will see everybody again in the book group on Wednesday night, in the Willows Bend group on Facebook, and readings on my Beyond the Veil page on Friday, then back in here on Soma Fusion on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we will be covering what got top Chosen Thunderbirds, I believe. So love to everybody. Thank you all. I appreciate each and every one of you. And we will see you again next week on Soma Fusion Network. We are everywhere on Facebook, YouTube. Check us out, like us, share us out, all that happy stuff. We're also available online at soma-fusion.com. So we are everywhere. We're easy to find. Will do, Gina. So have a wonderful, blessed night, everybody. I will see you guys Wednesday night for those interested in the book group. And otherwise, yeah, next week here.